As with many immigrants, their story begins thousands of miles away. It is told through the writings of one man who lived it.
That I may truly unfold the story of Plymouth Plantation, I must begin at the very root.
Hosea, chapter 3, verse 1. Religion is the best society.
This is William Bradford. Much of what is known about the Pilgrims comes from his words.
Thou shalt abide for me.
In 1607, he is an orphan living on his uncle's farm.
So will I also.
But his passion is theology.
Yet others persisted to disturb the peace of our poor persecuted church.
Return and seek the Lord their God. William, go and engage whoever it is in some discourse.
But what shall I speak of?
Use your wits, lad. Tell him I've been called away on postal business.
Hurry, make haste.
One wouldn't know it to look at them, but these worshippers are breaking the law. The official state religion is the Church of England. It was established 70 years earlier, in 1534, by King Henry VIII. He placed himself at the head of the church, replacing the Catholic Pope in Rome. English Protestants were overjoyed. They saw England joining the great Protestant Reformation of Martin Luther and the overthrow of the old Catholic Church. But real change in the Church of England is slow to come.
In the early 17th century, the Church of England still had remnants of the past, like stained glass. The church still had bishops and priests and deacons with cathedrals, choirs. In other words, it looked rather more like the old church, and a lot of Protestants did not like that one little bit.
Some feel the King's Church can never be purified. They must separate from it completely.
That's the difference between a Puritan and a separatist. Puritans simply wanted to change it, make it better. Separatists make another big leap of the imagination. They say you shouldn't have a Church of England. You shouldn't have a church which is connected with the civil power. And in the 16th century, that's a very big deal.
Our children, and many more that desire to join us from England, cannot and will not endure the great labour and hard fare
with other inconveniences
which we undergo.
Most are content with their labours here. We labour only as God wishes.
Aye, yet some prefer and choose the prisons in England rather than liberty in Holland with these afflictions. Faith, if some better and easier place could be found, it could draw many and take away these discouragements.
And where would you have us look for such a place of free living, free food, and godly worship?
Do not the scriptures urge us to bear poverty, nakedness, and loss of goods for Christ's own sake?
Servants of God do not, upon scriptural grounds, need to be poor and destitute. We need not seek willful poverty in order to be godly.
Where would we go? Where could we go?
What of America? There are vast and unpeopled countries in America, which are fruitful and fit for habitation.
I have not heard that America is unpeopled.
There are no civil men there, but only savages who need to hear the word of God.
Does it not appear on
The Pilgrims would have known quite a bit about America in 1617. Explorers from Europe had been traveling to North America and South America, Central and the Caribbean, for the better part of a century.
There is the hope, at least, of making some way in the propagating and advancing of the gospel of the kingdom of Christ in those remote areas of the world.
Remote? Aye. A place filled with savages that are cruel, barbarous, and that delight to torment men in the most bloody manner that may be.
They do have a number of preconceived notions about native peoples in North America. Some of that information was quite accurate. Told an awful lot about the organization of native peoples, their economies, their societies. But A great deal of it was perpetuating stereotypes that native people were savages, that they were cannibals.
Flaying some alive with the shells of fishes, and after broiling on the coals, eating the collops of their flesh in their sight whilst they live.
What the casualties of the seas? The weak bodies of women and children.
Life here may be almost as hard for many.
The change in air, diet, and the drinking of water in America will infect our bodies with grievous diseases.
Great and honourable actions are accompanied with great difficulties and must be overcome with answerable courages. The dangers are great, but not desperate. For true it is that such attempts are not to be undertaken without good ground or reason, not rashly or lightly, as many have done for curiosity or hope of gain. But our condition is not ordinary. Our ends are good and honourable. Therefore, we might expect the blessing of God in our proceeding.
To begin their voyage, the Pilgrims purchase a small ship, one that will stay with them in the New World.
She was called the Speedwell, and this was intended to be a vessel that would provide them with a way to explore the coast, search for furs, and if the worst should happen, it would provide them with a method of escape from the New World.
About 55 English separatists leave Holland on the Speedwell for England. There they hope a much larger ship loaded with supplies will be waiting to join them for the trip across the Atlantic.
Don't fret so, my lord.
The Robinsons will take good care of our John. Better than we. I will go below. Take your coat.
So we left that city which had been our resting place near 12 years. But we knew we were pilgrims, and lifted up our eyes to the heavens, our dearest country, and quieted our spirits. With a prosperous wind, we came in short time to Southampton. There we made port and found a bigger ship come from London lying ready, with all the rest of our company.
Now the Pilgrims see, for the first time, the primary ship that is to take them to America. The Mayflower.
The Mayflower was a merchant vessel, a cargo ship. She was not designed to carry passengers. She's about 180 tons, which means you could fit 180 casks of wine, tons of wine in its hold. She was beak-bowed, square-rigged, with high castle-like structures fore and aft. She was a very reliable ship, standard transportation of the early 17th century.
The recent arrivals from Leiden are reunited with William Brewster and two fellow separatists, John Carver and Robert Cushman, who have been hard at work setting up the voyage. After 3 years of planning and preparation, two ships, the Speedwell and the Mayflower, are finally on their way to America. The larger of the two ships, the Mayflower, is under the command of Master Christopher Jones. He and his ship have been hired to take the settlers to America and return to England. The two ships travel west for 7 days, sailing around the southern coast of England.
Not soon after, the Speedwell has trouble. The master of the Speedwell noted that she was taking on more water than they could handle.
We had not gone far, but Mr. Reynolds, the master of the lesser ship, complained that he had found his ship so leaky as he durst not put further to sea till she was mended.
The masts were too large, and you had too much sail.
Can we not go forward?
Well, this not only pushed the vessel forward, but provided torque and opened up the seams.
She is as open and leaky as a sieve. We must head for safe harbor.
And so this vessel would continue to leak, continue to leak.
The ships turned back not once, but 2 times.
Can you imagine the miles that they retraced their steps all the way back to England?
The Pilgrims lose an entire month while attempts are made to repair the smaller ship.
It's early September. This is not the time you want to sail to America. Westerly gales are screaming across the Atlantic. They'd be right in your teeth if you head out.
It was judged that the Speedwell would not prove sufficient for the voyage, upon which it was resolved to dismiss her and proceed with the Mayflower alone.
Because of the Speedwell having to stay behind, there are many more people on Mayflower than they anticipated carrying initially. There were ultimately 102 passengers on Mayflower on a relatively small ship.
It's a dark, dank, airless space, less than 5 feet high. So you were hunched as you walked up and down.
There were some animals down there, goats and pigs and chickens and provisions.
It was more like a cave, I think, than a place fit for human habitation.
Along with the 102 passengers on the Mayflower was between 25 and 35 crewmen on board.
All being now compact together in one ship, we put to sea again with a prosperous wind, which was some encouragement unto us. Yet, according to the usual manner, many were afflicted with seasickness.
Cock and pie! What a lot of dribbling cock queens! See that quail, living little kixie wixies.
One of the seamen, of a lusty, able body, which made him the more haughty, he would always be condemning the poor people in their sickness, and cursing us daily with grievous execrations.
Into the bucket, girl! Worse than the Alps.
There's no sanitation facilities. If you are seasick, which many are, and have to vomit, if you have to perform your other bodily functions, you're doing it in a slop bucket, and you're trying to hit the target on a moving deck. And a lot of people probably miss, so that it's not surprising that people comment on the stench below decks.
Shipboard fare in the 17th century was pretty much what shipboard fare would be for centuries to come, and that is miserable. Hardtack, a kind of baked bread that is has the consistency of a rock, was standard fare. A great incubator for weevils, by the way. You've got beef in barrels, heavily salted to preserve it.
One daily ration of the ship's diet would give a sailor or a passenger on a ship like Mayflower over 6,000 milligrams of salt in the day. Sodium intake at that level causes dehydration and hypothermia, as well as having long-term effects like high blood pressure.
The big problem in the 17th century was drinking water. The drinking water in England was not reliable, so people relied on beer primarily. And children drank it, everyone drank it.
And going to sea, the ordinary ration was 1 gallon of beer per day per person, which comes out to, rather a lot of beer.
After we had enjoyed fair winds and weather for a season, we were encountered many times with crosswinds and met with many fierce storms. with which the ship was shroudly shaken and her upper works made very leaky.
Now, move over, boys. Go that way. Move over now. Get out.